My family favored my sister and overlooked me at her wedding, but at mine she made amends by gifting me our grandmother's heirloom bracelet. As a 42-year-old who has struggled with complicated family matters for as long as I can remember, I believe the time has come to tell my tale. To put it mildly, my relationship with my 38-year-old younger sister has never been easy. I've always felt like I was playing second fiddle in my own family, and it's obvious that our parents have always preferred her above me. Almost every element of my life, including my relationships, professional decisions, and even sense of self-worth, has been influenced by this emotion. My sister was the center of my parents' attention from an early age. I was more introverted and, to be honest, lonely, but she was always the gregarious, popular one. I very well recall the celebration for my 10th birthday. Only a few of the students who were invited by my parents came up. My sister, who was only 6 at the time, managed to steal the show and keep everyone entertained with her antics. When I stealthily went away to my room, holding back tears, my parents hardly noticed because they were so preoccupied with her. I was merely there at school, while my sister was the life of the party. "Why can't you be more outgoing like your sister?" is something I've heard more times than I can count. "And your sister is so lively, why aren't you?" These comparisons never stopped, gradually eroding my sense of self-worth. I began to think that there must be a problem with me, that just because I wasn't like my sister, I wasn't good enough. The preference only became more obvious as we got older. I made a valiant attempt to forge my own professional path, but my parents never seemed to appreciate it. It has always been, "You should network more like your sister." Or, "If you were as charming as your sister, you'd get promoted faster." Every achievement I made was compared to my sister's, and they always thought I fell short. I gave my best to my work in the hopes that my parents would eventually recognize my value if I could just achieve enough success. As I advanced in my job, I gave up my personal life to work late into the night and on the weekends. I recall working 80-hour weeks for months on end on one particularly taxing job. I was thrilled to contact my parents to tell them that I had finally gotten a significant client for my business. How did they react? "Oh, sweetheart, that's lovely. Have we informed you of your sister's recent employment? It will be 6 digits for her." That was always the case. It was never enough for them, no matter how high I climbed. In contrast, my sister managed to get by on her charm and the steadfast backing of our parents. Please understand that I adore my sister. She is not a nasty person, and I am aware that our parents' different treatment of us is not her fault. However, it might be difficult to avoid feeling bitter at times, particularly when she appears unaware of the privileged treatment she receives. My sister got married last month. It would be an understatement to say that our parents were ecstatic. They dedicated a large portion of their cash as well as their hearts and souls to organizing the wedding. I thought it may be an opportunity for us to strengthen our family ties, so I offered to assist with the preparations, but I was graciously turned down at every stage. "Oh, you're so busy with work, we wouldn't want to bother you," they'd reply. In actuality though, they didn't want me to get involved. I made an effort to be upbeat, telling myself that it wasn't about me and that it was my sister's big day. However, I began to feel increasingly alienated from my own family as the wedding day drew near. When I learned that my parents had asked my sister's best friend to be her maid of honor without even taking me into consideration, it was the last straw. My mother simply remarked, "Well, you're not really the maid of honor type, are you?" when I challenged them about it. "We believed that a lower function would better suit you." The actual wedding day was challenging. My sister was praised throughout our parents' remarks, which included stories about her early years and their pride in the lady she had grown into. Not a word about me was said. They acted as though I didn't exist and that the 3 of them made up their entire family. On the inside, I felt like I was crumbling, but I sat there trying to smile. I heard my mother speaking to one of her friends after the ceremony. "We're so relieved," she remarked. "We were worried we might never get to experience a wedding day like this." It was obvious that they didn't believe I would ever get married. The worst was still to come, but it felt like a kick to the belly. My mother drew me aside later that night. I briefly entertained the idea that she may express regret for not including me in the remarks. Rather, she said something that will always stick in my memory. "Don't stress about your wedding. Since this might be the only one we get to plan, we put our all into it." We wanted to ensure that we did it correctly. Something broke inside of me at that very instant. All of the years I had spent feeling inferior and attempting to get their acceptance came tumbling down. However, it also seemed as though a fog had dissipated. I realized for the first time just how poisonous our family dynamic had become. The problem is that I'm not some lonesome spinster that they should be concerned about. 39M, my amazing fiancé, believes in me and loves me for who I am, not what he believes I should be. He has supported me through all of this family dysfunction over our 2 years of dating. It was him who persuaded me to go to therapy and begin addressing my problems with self-esteem. 3 years ago, I met my fiancé during a seminar at work. I was reluctant to let him in at first. I'd been scared of partnerships for years because I felt unworthy. However, he was gentle and patient, gradually dismantling the barriers I had put up around myself. I can still clearly recall the instant I knew I was falling for him. As we spent a peaceful evening together, I told him about a challenging workday. He simply listened without trying to solve problems or make things better. Then he said, "You realize how wonderful you are? You are amazing in the way you approach problems and the way you take pride in your job." I felt genuinely noticed and valued for who I am for the first time in my life. All of this familial drama has been greatly supported by my fiancé. He has comforted me when I've sobbed following tough phone conversations with my parents. He has urged me to put my own mental health first and to establish limits. Furthermore, he has never made me feel inadequate or likened me to my sister. Since college, 41F, my incredible best friend, has been by my side. When I'm feeling overwhelmed by self-doubt, she's always there to remind me of my strengths. She repeatedly reassured me that I deserved more while holding me while I sobbed after the wedding. In my life, our connection has consistently provided encouragement and affirmation. She has witnessed my darkest moments and has never passed judgment on my difficulties with my family. Rather, she has consistently provided me with a sympathetic ear, a shoulder to weep on, and occasionally a harsh reality check when I begin to internalize my parents' criticism. Building a life away from the influence of my family has also been greatly aided by my best buddy. She is the one who inspired me to follow interests and pastimes that I find enjoyable, even if they don't align with my parents' preferences. Because of her, I've developed a love for painting, which I never would have attempted if my only goal had been to please my parents. For me, these painting sessions have turned into a kind of therapy where I can release feelings that I've suppressed for years. I'm currently working to take back my life and my self-esteem. I'm attempting to strengthen my sense of self while in treatment and healing from years of emotional neglect. It's not simple. On some days I can still hear my parents' judgmental voices telling me that I'm not good enough. However, I'm learning to confront those ideas and remind myself of my own value and potential. My fiancé and I are discussing our own wedding plans, which will be small and personal and accurately represent who we are as a pair. It's thrilling, but it also evokes a wide range of complex feelings. To show my parents that I'm deserving of a celebration, I secretly hope to have the lavish wedding my sister had. However, I'm making an effort to remind myself that this day should be about me and my fiancé, not about giving my family proof of anything. I'm also trying to figure out why my sister and I are treated so differently by our parents in therapy. According to my therapist, my parents' actions may be a result of their own fears and unmet expectations. With her gregarious demeanor and social success, my sister might be the embodiment of everything they've always wanted to be. They might be reminded of their own perceived shortcomings by my more reserved demeanor and emphasis on professional achievement. This lets me see them as flawed people rather than as all-powerful people whose approval I must gain, even while it doesn't justify their actions. However, I'm having trouble deciding how to proceed with my family. I want to completely cut them off in order to shield myself from more harm. I also harbor the hope that we might be able to mend our friendship. However, I'm not really sure where to begin. I've considered going up to them and telling them how they've harmed me over the years, but I'm scared they'll just brush it off as they always do. Even worse, they'll reverse it and blame me for my sister's success, saying that I'm the issue because I'm too sensitive or envious. According to my fiancé, I ought to offer them one final opportunity to get together and discuss our relationship openly. He thinks there's a chance they would realize and desire to change if I can articulate how their actions have affected me. He has volunteered to support me by being present if I choose to have this chat. However, my best friend believes that I should put my own recovery first and avoid them, at least for the time being. She fears that attempting to mend the relationship before I've resolved my personal problems completely could hinder my advancement. Instead, she said, I might want to write them a letter to describe how I feel without having to respond right away. I'm conflicted. They are my family, on the one hand. A part of me still yearns for their affection and acceptance in spite of everything. There are both pleasant and painful memories in me, such as my mom consoling me after my first heartbreak and my dad teaching me how to ride a bike. I question whether it's worth struggling for those moments of connection. However, I'm worn out after years of trying to live up to their expectations only to be ignored and underappreciated all the time. I'm concerned that if I keep talking to them, I might not be able to get well and go on with my life. Additionally, I fear that my future children will experience the same suffering and insecurity that I have. As I type this, I'm aware that I've never really put all of these emotions into words before. It is both overpowering and somewhat freeing. I've devoted a significant portion of my life to attempting to fulfill the expectations of my parents. I'm now at last beginning to understand who I am and what I desire. I'm looking to you, Reddit, for guidance. How would you respond if I were you? How can I handle this complicated familial situation? Should I concentrate on starting a new family with my fiancé and friends who genuinely care about me? Or is there any chance that we may mend our relationship? If any of you have experienced comparable circumstances, how did you respond? Was it best for you to keep your distance from your family, or were you able to mend your relationship with them? How did you handle the guilt and the pressure from society to keep family ties intact if you did remove yourself? I appreciate you reading this far. I realize it was lengthy. Finally sharing something with someone, even if they are only complete strangers you met online, feels nice. I would be very grateful for any guidance or words of encouragement. I feel like I'm at a fork in the road and don't know which way to go. However, I am aware that I cannot stay in this state of uncertainty and keep looking for unfulfilled acceptance. A change is needed, but I'm not clear what that modification should entail. First update. 2 months have passed since my last post, and I wanted to give you all an update on what has been going on. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who read my tale and gave me advice. Your assistance has been priceless. The most significant shift has been in how I view myself. I've been going to therapy regularly, and my self-esteem is really improving. I'm working through years of emotional maltreatment and continual comparison to my sister with the support of my therapist. Although it's challenging, I'm coming to value myself regardless of my family's opinion. It has been beneficial to keep a wins journal. I jot down one accomplishment, no matter how minor, every day. I'm gradually coming to terms with the fact that, despite what my family may believe, I am competent and deserving. I've also shared my difficulties with my coworkers. Unexpectedly, a lot of others had comparable experiences, which made me feel less alone and opened up some fantastic mentorship opportunities. My relationship with my fiancé has undergone the biggest shift. Our relationship has strengthened as we prepare for our wedding. Throughout it all, he has been my pillar of support, always ready to listen and offer uncritical support. We've discussed our future in great detail, including how we want to handle family dynamics with our own prospective children. Speaking up about my anxieties of repeating the habits I was raised with has been both frightening and freeing. In addition to being understanding, my fiancé has pledged to constantly work with me to establish a kind, encouraging household. While talking about wedding arrangements last week, an unforgettable moment occurred. To show my family that I'm deserving of a celebration, I acknowledge that a part of me wants a lavish wedding like my sister's. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, my fiancé replied. I want our wedding to be about us, not your parents or anybody else, because you deserve to be celebrated every day. His remarks served as a warning. I came to the realization that I was still unconsciously trying to win my parents' approval. We have now made the decision to organize a wedding that accurately captures who we are as a couple. We have made some firm decisions. We intend to have a small, private ceremony with only our closest friends and family, perhaps at sunset on the beach or in a garden. We wish to honor our love and dedication in a cozy, happy setting. We're thinking of combining our love of the outdoors with the romance of beginning a married life by going trekking in a national park for our honeymoon. But I'm not sure if I should invite my sister and parents to the wedding. Reconciliation is something I wish for, but I'm afraid they'll ruin our day or say something cruel. My fiancé has been encouraging and has promised to support my decision no matter what. In order to establish clear guidelines for acceptable behavior, he has even offered to speak with my family if we invite them. My maid of honor, who is also my best friend, has been a huge help. She has immersed herself into the wedding planning process, and her excitement for this new phase of my life has been a lovely diversion from my complex familial feelings. She has been gently encouraging me to think about my own desires, apart from any obligations to my family. I am reminded by her that today is your day. You deserve to be in the company of people who truly appreciate you. 2 months later, I'm in a lot better place. I'm beginning to see my own power and have more faith in myself. I'm learning that family is about people who support you without conditions, not simply genetic ties. And I'm creating a future with a partner who genuinely cherishes me. However, I continue to struggle with how to deal with my biological family. Should I risk drama by inviting them to the wedding? Should I speak with them again before making a decision? Or ought I to concentrate on this new phase of my life? Reddit, I'd love to know what you think. How have you responded to comparable circumstances involving weddings and family? I would appreciate any guidance on establishing limits or having challenging conversations. Once again, I appreciate your help. Having this place to reflect and share is really meaningful. I'll keep you informed as events develop. Second update. Since my last update, which was a month ago, a lot has transpired. I appreciate all of your suggestions and encouragement regarding my previous post. We decided to invite my sister and dad after considerable discussion with my therapist and fiancé. We took our time creating the ideal invitation, attempting to mix being warm with setting up appropriate boundaries. I didn't get the response I was hoping for. My mother called me 3 days after I sent out the invites. She initially appeared thrilled, but then the inquiries began. Why is the wedding so small? Do you not wish to have a formal celebration as your sister did? She laughed when I told her that we wanted a small ceremony that was true to who we were. You've always been really challenging. For once, can't you simply act normally? I made an effort to maintain my composure by applying the strategies I've been learning in therapy. I clarified that since it was our day, we intended to celebrate it any way we saw fit. My father picked up the phone at that point. I have been speaking with your mother, he stated forcefully. We believe that this little wedding is a mistake on your part. Family members find it embarrassing. What are people going to think? I was taken aback. They continued to care more about looks than about how happy I was. I remained calm and informed them that although I valued their opinions, the choice was definitive. My father was upset and my mother was crying as the call ended. My fiancé was there to encourage me even though I was shaken by the call. Reminding me that their response was about them and not about us, he held me while I sobbed. My sister sent me an unexpectedly encouraging text the following day. I called her, bewildered. At first our chat was difficult, but she opened up as we spoke. She remarked, I've been considering our relationship a lot. I had no idea how much you were going through. You know, I've always envied you. I was surprised. Did you envy me? But the favorite was always you. She gave a sorrowful laugh. I always felt like I was living in your shadow, maybe to our parents. You were really intelligent and motivated. I believed that in order to receive any attention at all, I needed to be the life of the party. For the first time in years, we actually spoke for hours on end. I apologized for the resentment I had held, and she apologized for the instances in which she had been disrespectful. It seemed like a beginning, but it wasn't a miracle solution. But a new problem has emerged as a result of our increased knowledge. My sister wants to contribute to the wedding and play a significant role in it. I'm excited about the prospect of repairing our connection, but I'm also cautious. Could it be that this is merely preparing me for further disappointment? Although he believes it's a good step, my fiancé is letting me make the final decision. My best buddy, who reminds me of all the hurt I've endured in the past, is more wary. She remarked, it's acceptable to have hope, but remember to take precautions as well. I'm conflicted. Though I'm afraid of exposing myself to additional suffering, this could be the start of a new, healthy relationship with my sister. Then there is our parents' problem. If my sister is involved but they are kept at a distance, how would they respond? Regarding the actual wedding, we are proceeding with our preparations. We've located a stunning garden location that embodies the private, romantic ambiance we're aiming for. We've decided on a color palette, selected flowers, and begun researching catering choices. I'm getting enthusiastic about these details despite the familial drama. Regardless of who shows up, it serves as a reminder that this day is about celebrating our love. Throughout everything, my fiancé has been my pillar of support. He's given me space when I've needed to think things through alone, been understanding when I've needed to rant, and given me advice when I've asked for it. I'm even more convinced that marrying him is the perfect choice because of his consistent support. I'm focusing on establishing and upholding limits in my treatment. In order to prepare me for any challenging situations that may come up, my therapist has been helping me rehearse reactions to possible events at the wedding. Having to prepare for a confrontation on what should be one of the best days of my life makes me feel empowered, but it also makes me a little melancholy. I'm at another fork in the road, Reddit. Should I accept my sister's offer to assist with the wedding, which could lead to a reconciliation but also increase the likelihood of further harm? How do I strike a balance between the need to protect myself and my desire for family harmony? Furthermore, how can I deal with my parents' criticism without allowing it to ruin our special day? Any guidance or first-hand knowledge would be very valued. Again, I want to thank everyone for their support. You have no idea how much it means. Third update. A week has passed since our wedding, and I wanted to give everyone who has helped me along the way this last update. Everything's all occurred so quickly, and I'm still absorbing everything. I gave my sister's offer to assist with the wedding a lot of thought before accepting. Although it was a risk, I thought it was worthwhile. There was a lot going on in the days before the wedding. I was astonished at how well my sister and I worked together on the last-minute details. Although there were tense moments, we were able to resolve them and have open communication. The actual wedding day was tense. My parents were seated in the front row as I started down the aisle. My father actually grinned at me while my mother wiped at her eyes. It was something, even though it wasn't the kind of proud, warm smile I had always wanted. The ceremony was kind, intimate, and all we could have imagined. I felt as though everything else vanished as my fiancé and I exchanged vows. We were the only ones making pledges to one another at that very moment. My sister came up to me with a tiny wrapped surprise during the reception. An exquisite silver bracelet that had belonged to our grandmother was found within. She gave me the bracelet, which had been a source of conflict between us for years, as a gesture of goodwill. My father later asked me to dance, which surprised me. He remarked, "Your mother and I, we may not have always understood you, but seeing you today, you seem happy." As we moved uncomfortably to the music. Incredibly joyful. It felt like an acknowledgement, but it wasn't an apology. The remainder of the evening was a haze of joy, dancing and laughter. Although there were tense times, it was a happy occasion all around. Throughout it all, my new spouse was by my side, cheering me on in the good times and encouraging me in the bad. My sister took me aside one final time as we were heading out on our honeymoon. "I want you to know that even though our relationship hasn't always been easy, I'm proud of you," she said. "Additionally, I hope that we can continue to improve our friendship." Since the wedding, the days have been a combination of peaceful introspection and honeymoon delight. Disengaged from the outside world and concentrating on one another, my spouse and I hiked in a national park for a fantastic week. I'm trying to take in all that happened now that we're home. Since I got back, I've been seeing my therapist, and we've been discussing how I feel about the wedding and how it will affect my future relationships with my family. She has reminded me that it's acceptable to still feel conflicted while also encouraging me to recognize the constructive actions that were performed. My spouse and I have discussed limits and the type of connection we hope to have with my family in the future. We acknowledge that maintaining open communication is important, but we also recognize that our small family must come first. Since the wedding, my sister and I have texted each other a few times. They have been friendly yet hesitant. Next week, we're going to get together for coffee to discuss this further. Although there is still some tension with my parents, there seems to be a change. When my mother called to inquire about the honeymoon, the conversation was a little stilted, but it lacked the criticism I've grown accustomed to. I'm struck by how much has changed as I think back on the entire experience, from my first post to this point. I'm not gullible enough to believe that our family's problems are all behind us. I'm aware that much work remains to be done, but I feel hopeful for the first time in a long time. This process has taught me a lot about who I am. Even when people don't value me, I've learned to set boundaries, stand up for what I want and value myself. I've discovered that while it's acceptable to wish for improved ties with my family, their acceptance does not determine my value. Above all, I've discovered that family isn't just about blood, it's also about the people who encourage you, share in your happiness, and support you through your hardships. Through this, my best friend, my spouse, and even some of you on Reddit have been like family to me. I want to let anyone who is dealing with comparable family problems know that things do get better. It may not be flawless. It may not be what you had anticipated. However, there is still hope. Don't be scared to set boundaries. Surround yourself with people that genuinely care about you and keep improving yourself. Once again, I want to thank everyone for their support along this trip. I have greatly benefited from your counsel, support, and shared experiences. Without you, I couldn't have survived this. Cheers to fresh starts, recovery, and building the kind of love and support that each of us deserves.